Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. It's Travers Saturday at Saratoga, and DRF handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I will take a look at 3 Grade 1 stakes races: the Midsummer Derby at 1.25 miles for 3-year-olds, the Travers, the Grade 1 Personal Ensign featuring multiple champion Songbird, and the Grade 1 Sword Dancer Stakes at 1.5 miles on the turf. Nicole Russo's pedigree pick takes a foreign slant this week, taking a look at some European invaders in both the Sword Dancer and the Grade 1 Forgo Stakes for 3-year-olds and up sprinting. JK's play of the day analyzes the Saratoga Pick 6. Craig Milkowski's TimeformUS Spotlight takes a closer look at the Forgo. And we'll have best bets, horses to watch, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Matt Bernier, pretty big name in the pedigree of one of your horse watches this week. 2-year-old. You've been giving a lot of 2-year-olds on this show.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, we're getting into that time of year where now we're going to start to see maybe these will be the horses that ultimately run in the Triple Crown next year. This horse that we're going to take a look at is named St. Patrick's Day. Bob Baffert has him. You see him down the inside. This is his career debut, and he ends up getting beat by another Baffert horse in those Zayat Silks. All things considered, I thought it was a good debut down on the inside. Not the easiest trip for a first-time out 2-year-old. The important thing to note about St. Patrick's Day is his full older brother was American Pharoah. I'm not suggesting they're going to be the exact same kind of horse or same caliber, but keep in mind, first time out, broke from the inside, down on the inside throughout. He earned an 81 buyer. I thought the horse that he ran into was quite good. Baffert has kind of gone back and forth whether or not we see him in the Del Mar Futurity. We wait for a maiden special weight. I personally would wait for a maiden special.
Mike, you also have a 2-year-old for us, one that got a big fig at Saratoga. Tell us about Honorable Treasure.
Yeah, this is last Saturday's second race at Saratoga, and I think the video that we're going to show here for Honorable Treasure will do most of the talking for me. This is an off-the-turf race, and he did draw in off the AE list, but I don't think that should be too much of a concern. I think Kenny McPeak always wanted to run this horse on dirt. He got in, and he's just going to take this thing over the top of the stretch, and it's all over from here. Love the way this horse strides out at the end. He gets a 90 buyer speed figure, just leaving this field behind through the stretch. Makes him the fastest 2-year-old in the country right now, 2-year-old colt in the country right now anyway. And I feel like this is a horse, he's got the pedigree to stretch out. This was a real nice performance for this horse. He's got bigger things in his future, I think.
My horse watch, It's in the Post, has had difficult scenarios in his last 2 races. 2 starts back, he was shipped to Monmouth Park for the Grade 1 United Nations, and he was involved in a torrid race-long duel with Beach Patrol, who came back, of course, to win the Grade 1 Arlington Million. Last week, he ran in the Del Mar Handicap, and things didn't go well for him again. We pick it up right now. He is the number 5 in those red silks. You're going to notice as they enter turn 3 of the Del Mar Handicap, he checks just a little bit, and this was a tale of 2 trips. The winner is sitting right now in 4th. That's the very sharp Hunt. Everything went right for him. Nothing went right for It's in the Post, who was stuck behind a dullard right there, and is still in behind horses. You're going to notice that Hunt is going to dive to the in-between horses, the 2-path and split horses, while It's in the Post is still searching for room. Now It's in the Post realizes the only chance I've got to get room is to follow Hunt, who has gotten a big tactical advantage at this point. Here comes It's in the Post right now. He's absolutely flying down towards the inside, but he runs out of racing room. The gallop out was exceptional. It appears that Jeff Mullins has It's in the Post in very good form. Once again, he was really good towards the spring this year. We might see him in the John Henry Turf Championship at Santa Anita, and who knows, maybe we'll even see him in the Breeders' Cup Turf a little bit later this fall. Now time for some handicapping. The Travers is our race of the day. Let's take a look at the Saturday DRF.com Formulator Race of the Day, the Grade 1 $1.25 million Travers Stakes, the Midsummer Derby for 3-year-olds at 1.25 miles. Race number 11 at Saratoga. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races at Saratoga and Del Mar this weekend, please head on over to video.drf.com. The Travers, gentlemen, is a sensational betting race. We've got all 3 winners of the Triple Crown Series. Matt, let's talk about Always Dreaming. He looks to be loose on the lead in the Travers.
Yeah, if you can forgive the past 2 efforts, you're left with the Kentucky Derby and a horse that could very well be on the front end. If he runs the way that he did on Derby Day, first Saturday in May, he has a giant chance to win this race. Now keep in mind that he was down on the inside, a day that inside was advantageous at Churchill Downs, and he was on a wet track. He's going to get neither of those, presumably, on Saturday afternoon. But again, from a tactical standpoint, he figures to be controlling speed in this spot. If he can rebound, yeah, you've got to consider him at least a mild threat.
It'll be his second race back. He set the pace in the Jim Dandy, got a little bit tired at the end of this race, and he should be controlling things once again on the backstretch. Todd Pletcher trains Always Dreaming. Mike Beer, Todd Pletcher trained the Belmont winner. That is Tapwrit. Let's go back to his race in the Belmont. Just a beautiful trip and ride by Jose Ortiz, and he really appreciated this distance.
Yeah, it did seem like maybe he won the Belmont based on that fact more than anything else. He just really appreciated the mile and a half. Not that he didn't do some good things in this race, though, because Irish Warcry tried to break that race open, and I like the way that Tapwrit was able to keep him in range. He closes him down at the end. This is a strong performance from this horse, New Buyer Top, a horse who was just improving from start to start earlier in the year. The Derby didn't work out for him. He got a little redemption on Belmont Stakes Day. Distance is no problem for him. Listen, in a lot of ways, he's the horse to beat in here, but this is going to be a little bit tougher for him, I think.
He doesn't have a recent prep race, but he's run well fresh in the past, and you can trust Pletcher to have him ready for the Travers. A horse with recency and form is West Coast for Bob Baffert, who, of course, won this race last year with Arrogate. Matt, let's talk about his race in the Los Alamitos Derby as we show it right now. I mean, he was wide every step. He basically ran a mile and a quarter in this race.
He was very wide throughout. I think you've got to keep in mind, though, this field thus far has come back a little bit on the suspect side, and it's also worth noting, maybe it was Los Al, maybe it was something else. On the far turn, he was in deep water. He was all out for about a half mile, and it looked like he could easily finish up the track, and instead he rallies. He finishes very well down the center of the racetrack. I wonder if this is a horse that's still trying to put it all together. It may not be the greatest group of 3-year-olds we've ever seen, but it's still a tall ass trying to ship across country and win.
These are three of the bigger names in this year's Travers. Mike, you have another big name in this spot. That is Cloud Computing, winner of the Preakness Stakes. Let's watch the Preakness and make your case for him in the Travers.
Yeah, well, this is obviously his crowning moment so far. He's very lightly raced. This is only his 4th career start, and you can see him turning into the stretch here with a little bit of work to do to get to a good horse on the lead in Classic Empire, but get to him he will. I like the way that he reels this horse in late and gets up to win the Preakness. He made his next start after this race in the Jim Dandy. He was a little disappointing in that race. Obviously, he finished last, but I personally just don't think that performance is maybe as bad as it looks on paper. That pace got pretty fast, I think. I think he went a little too soon to chase it on a day when you wanted to be inside. He chased it from the outside. I think a lot of things worked against him last time, and he's 8-1 on the line from a great post. He can get a good trip in this race. I think he deserves a chance to rebound.
Matt, I love the loyalty that you're showing once again. Gervin was good to you. You're going to try to be good to Gervin in the Travers.
It's just one of those scenarios where there's so many horses in here with questions. Gervin, maybe there's a question about, is he fast enough? But there's something I do know. His most recent start in the Haskell, he had a couple of things go against him where he was coming off of, let's say, the second start since of a pretty bad foot issue that he had to deal with. And he overcame all that, and he came on, and he's got a nice sort of run to him. Keep in mind, this is a horse. You take out the Kentucky Derby, he's basically a neck and 3/4 away from being an unbeaten horse at this point. He had the foot issues. He comes back in the Ohio Derby, runs very well, comes into this spot here. And I just like the way that he finished. I feel like this additional 1/8 of a mile that we've got to deal with in the Travers is going to work to his advantage. Where again, maybe some of the other horses in this race, it won't. And I just like the fact that he's in form.
He just looks a lot smoother ever since he came back from the Kentucky Derby. And you remember he had all these feet problems leading up to the Derby, caught a wet track. Just seems a lot more professional with his lead changes. This horse looks like a sleeper yet again in the Travers. Good Samaritan has always hinted at immense potential on the turf. He made his dirt debut most recently in the Jim Dandy, the local prep race for the Travers. Let's take a look at that race right now. Now, the pace heated up on the backstretch. They went after Always Dreaming after he shook loose early. Good Samaritan and Joel Rosario was biding his time at the back of the pack, and you see right now, swinging to the outside, he's able to inhale the Derby and Preakness winner late. I thought this was a good performance. The trip did seem to work out for him, but this is a horse, again, he's always hinted at ability on the turf. He had enough dirt pedigree for Bill Mott to try this horse in the Jim Dandy. And I think all he needs is a little bit of a pace, and he can replicate that performance at a solid price in the Grade 1 Travers. Nicole Russo looks at 2 of the undercard races on Travers Saturday. She'll analyze European runners in both the Forgo and the Sword Dancer. Let's go to Nicole's pedigree pick.
Hi guys, Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate. Big Travers card set for Saturday at Saratoga. Runners in from all over for some major Grade 1 stakes, including some runners coming in from overseas. I want to take a look at 3 European shippers on the Saturday card to help you in getting to know them and evaluating them in your handicapping. The Grade 1 Sword Dancer on the turf, a spot you might expect these horses to show up, has drawn 2 European-based runners, Idaho and Erupt. Let's start by taking a look at Idaho first. A Group 2 winner last year. He won the Group 2 Hardwick Stakes at Royal Ascot earlier this year. He came back to run a good third in his most recent start in the Group 1 King George and Queen Elizabeth to the star filly Enable, who is just on a tear. And another indicator of the quality of the competition, runner-up Ulysses just came back to win the Jeddah International. Idaho is by international titan Galileo and from an incredibly deep family with so much stamina and class. He's a full brother to the globetrotting star Highland Reel, winner of last year's Breeders' Cup Turf. Another standout at Royal Ascot earlier this year, just a true superstar who has ducked no one through the course of his career. These two are out of a mare who finished second in the Australian Oaks. Their second dam, Circles of Gold, won the Australian Oaks and also produced Australian champions Alvesterem and Haradasan. So just a stellar family behind Idaho. Now, Erupt was seen coming to North America, winning the Group 1 Canadian International last fall at Woodbine, getting a great stalking trip, winning by a length. May like the race shape that sets up in the Sword Dancer. Of course, North American turf racing is so different from European turf racing. The multiple Group 1 winner has gone unplaced in 3 starts since that win at Woodbine. He's by the standout young sire Dubawi, the best son out there of the ill-fated Dubai Millennium that he left behind. We're starting to see more and more of Dubawi's runners run worldwide, not just overseas, and doing spectacular. Erupt's Dam, also a Group 3 winner in Europe. Now, we have one more runner coming here straight from Europe for Saturday's Saratoga card. That's Ross, a son of Acclamation in the Grade 1 Forgo Stakes, going 7 furlongs on the dirt against the star sprinters Mind Your Biscuits and Dreyfong. Not necessarily where you expect to see European shippers showing up in a top-class dirt sprint, but let's take a closer look. Ross has won, at or around the 7 furlong distance, and he's run very well on dirt without winning. He has several group placings, including a good second by a neck earlier this year in the Godolphin Mile on the Dubai World Cup undercard. He's run very well at Meydan. He came back off that and won an allowance on synthetic in France earlier this month, clearly coming in good form. Ross is from a family that's had success on the dirt. His dam stakes winner in Europe, in Germany, actually from the immediate family of Regal Sanction and Nani's Dancer Ali, both graded stakes winners on the dirt in the United States. You'll have to evaluate where you think his class is, but I certainly think that he's an interesting prospect for this dirt sprint. Well, as we mentioned, horses coming in from all over for this big Saturday card. One of those is the 2-time champion Songbird, flying back to Saratoga for the personal ensign, and we'll be back to take a closer look at her prospects on Out of the Gate after these messages.
North America's first yearling sale for horses with turf appeal is coming to Fasig-Tipton. Selected yearlings by the nation's top turf sires. The Fasig-Tipton Turf Showcase presented by Woodbine Racetrack, September 10th in Lexington, Kentucky. Where will you be?
Luxair Jets is excited to announce the new, most convenient way to fly nonstop from Lexington to historic Saratoga Springs throughout the racing meet. We are now offering exclusive group packages on our luxurious private jets. Each package offers a once-in-a-lifetime experience that you can share with your friends, family, or business partners. Call for pricing and availability. Coming up this summer, it's Spa Babies presented by WinStar Farm. Every Wednesday through Sunday during the Saratoga meeting, Nicole Russo and I will analyze the best 2-year-old races at the spa. We'll go beyond the past performances and discuss pedigree, trainer patterns, workouts, and more. It's Spa Babies presented by WinStar Farm every Wednesday through Sunday at video.drf.com. Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 1 $700,000 personal ensign stakes for fillies and mares 3 and up, going 1 1/8 miles. It's carded as race number 6 at Saratoga on Travers. Saturday for expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races at Saratoga and Del Mar this weekend. Head on over to video.drf.com. Matt Bernier, the story, of course, in this race is multiple champion Songbird. And I guess sometimes on social media, winning isn't enough. Because last time out in the Delaware handicap, she won yet again. She's a nose away from being undefeated during her brilliant career, and yet it wasn't enough for the folks. They thought it was a terrible performance. What's going on?
Twitter is a bad barometer of real life. Now, at the same time, you can also be honest and say the fact that she won the Delaware handicap, she probably just got by on class alone because it was not one of her vintage performances. She's going to need to do better if she's going to win Saturday in the personal ensign. The problem is, for everybody else in the field, there is no other speed. Songbird's going to go to the front. She's going to do what she always does. And I think that tactical edge alone is enough to get her through this.
Mike, we watched this race, and we expected, like everybody else, for Songbird to put on a show. She was 1-20 against extremely inferior competition. And as you see, she had to work very hard. Is the aura of invincibility gone somewhat?
Maybe a little bit. I'll say this. I don't know that it's, that this has to be the kind of race that you just want to judge her off of and say, well, I told you she was never that good and she's not that good. I don't think I would go that far. I would say that if you really like Songbird and you think she's, one of the best horses you've ever seen, and you tell me that you're not concerned about that performance we just watched, you're lying. She did not run well in that race. That's a field she was supposed to win. She was supposed to defeat very easily, and she did not.
Matt, let's talk about this race. We say it many times on our stakes previews, Race of the Days, right here on Out of the Gate. When the best horse gets the best trip, that horse is going to win a lot of the time, and Songbird's going to be loose on the lead.
No, that's just kind of the way that I look at it. I kind of feel like even if she has lost 2 or 3 miles an hour on the fastball from what it was last year, and again, it's not a discussion about all-time greats or any of that kind of nonsense. It's a matter of just looking at her, what she is right now. Even if she's lost a little bit, the other girls are still going to need to pick their feet up, pick their game up to go and beat her. I think the tactical edge is enough to beat all these other girls.
Matt, there was enough in the Delaware handicap that maybe you would want to try to take a shot against Songbird in a race like the personal ensign. You've always been a big fan of Forever Unbridled.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy for her to defeat Songbird, but that last race, I guess, could give you, from Songbird, could give you at least a little something to worry about. Forever Unbridled, pretty good filly in her own right. She got really good last year, and I really felt like the last time she squared off against Songbird, which was in the Breeders' Cup Distaff last year, this horse, I thought, ran an excellent third in this race. Songbird's on the lead there, down on the rail. Beholder's coming after her, and that's Forever Unbridled in the yellow silks. She was taken pretty far back off this pace, conservatively ridden. She finishes very gamely in here. She's finishing up right with these 2 horses in front of them. She can't get to them at the end. This is a good effort from her, though. She's second off the layoff now. Della Stewart's picking his spots for this filly. I think she's pretty good, and if we see the Songbird on Saturday that we saw at Delaware last time, this horse could perhaps take her down.
Forever Unbridled didn't really get a fig when she won the Fleur de Lis, her seasonal debut, but boy, was she visually impressive. Just looked like a perfect prep for a race like this. I don't want to have too much money in against Songbird in this spot. My pick is sort of maybe a horse to round out the exotics. If I was playing multiple race wagers, Songbird would be my only A, but I would use a backup just in case, and it would be Chad Brown's number 3, Going for Broke, who returned off a long layoff last time out in the restricted Shine Again Stakes, going 7 furlongs at Saratoga. We pick up the race as they turn into the stretch, and she's down on the inside at the back of the pack. She spies a hole on the rail, and she's going to come with a solid late run. Now, she is facing Karina Mia, who is a legitimately good middle distance horse. Used to be with Bill Mott, now with Chad Brown, and Karina Mia is going to put Going for Broke in a little bit tight here in the last 16th of a mile, and I think this, coupled with the layoff, worked against Going for Broke. Chad Brown had the option to put Going for Broke in the Ballerina, a 7 furlong race where she would face off against Karina Mia again, and she'd be very salty in that spot. I think it's very interesting that he decides to take on the big girls, Songbird Third, and Forever Unbridled in the Personal Ensign, maybe going for broke at a little bit of a price to at least round out the exotics in the Grade 1 Personal Ensign. Time for some turf action here on Out of the Gate. Let's move to the Sword Dancer. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 1 $1 million Sword Dancer Invitational at 1.5 miles on the turf at Saratoga. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races at Saratoga and Del Mar this weekend, please head on over to video.drf.com, and our Sword Dancer coverage is presented by the Fasig-Tipton Turf Showcase. Matt, Nicole, in her pedigree piece discussed the 2 European entrants in this race. Let's talk about the morning line favorite in here. That's Idaho. We'll watch his race 2 starts back in the Hardwick at Royal Ascot. He's a grinder.
Yeah, he doesn't have a big sort of acceleration, a big burst of energy. Keep in mind, this is the younger full brother to Highland Reel. You see him right now going on with it. Now, the interesting thing about the turf this day at Royal Ascot, apparently it was 95 degrees over there, and it was the hardest, firmest turf you're ever going to find. Luckily for Idaho and Aidan O'Brien, that's probably what you're going to get Saturday afternoon in the Sword Dancer. My biggest concern, though, is that he is just kind of a stayer. He doesn't have that big burst, that big turn of foot.
Mike Idaho has had 1 subsequent start since that effort, and he took on 2 superior horses, was not embarrassed at all. From a class standpoint, you can argue he is the class of this field, but I agree with Matt. His lack of acceleration worries me somewhat. Yeah,
no, I agree with all that stuff as well. He's just one of those horses, he's just... You know, look, he is what he is. Does he class up well with this field? He certainly does. Is he some kind of, superstar Group 1 European horse? No, he's not. He's nothing like his brother Highland Reel in that regard. His races are fine. His only 2 wins since he broke his maiden are both on class drops. Maybe you want to look at this race on Saturday and say this is a class drop as well, and think it's a good spot for him. You'd probably be right, but I don't know how short a price I'd be willing to take on him.
Several horses in the Sword Dancer exit the local prep. That's the Bowling Green, sort of a blanket finish. Mike, you're going to take a horse that really disappointed us in the stretch, and it didn't disappoint anyone more than Matt. And I know you got to watch this, Matt, and relive this agony. Let's take a look at Sadler's Joy in the Bowling Green.
Yeah, let's watch the Bowling Green. There he is on the outside. Let's all start counting our money together here as he sweeps by this field on the outside. He hits the front and starts to open up on this field. It's all over. Everybody's headed towards the windows. And all of a sudden, he just sort of looks like he loses his concentration here. He stops finding at the end. The closers are coming for him. He tries to dig back in, but he can't do it. Surprisingly easy for me to forgive him for that effort somehow. I don't know. I swore right after the race I would never go back to him. I'm going to give him one more chance. I think he fits this race well. I don't mind the rider change. In retrospect, I think maybe Castellano went a little too soon in that one. Time it better on Saturday. He can beat this field.
Mike's always been a fanboy for Sadler's Joy, but he's right. That pace really collapsed in the last 3/16 of a mile, and Sadler's Joy sort of made the first move. But I agree. It looked like he lost his focus once he made the front. Matt, you like Money Multiplier? It's Chad Brown. He ran so well in this race last year against his stablemate Flincher.
Yeah, he really did. He was unlucky, I think. There was so many things that went on in that race. That's another story for another day. I don't love Money Multiplier, but I kind of look at this race, and we're going to take a look at his most recent start down at Monmouth. I don't like what he does with his lead changes. You're going to see Javier hit him right-handed. He's going to pop to his left lead. He was rank early on. But there's something to keep in mind about the turf courses coming into this weekend at Saratoga. The rails are going to be down. I'm going to assume inside is going to be the place to be. Other than frank conversation, there's not a lot of gas in this race. Money Multiplier, this race that we're taking a look at, that was run at 9 furlongs. He's going to get out to 12 on Saturday afternoon. I think Javier takes up either a tracking trip or he's going to press the issue, going into the far turn, rolls up on frank conversation, and you know what? Maybe that tactical advantage is enough to beat the 2 Europeans coming over.
I think Chad had to be very happy with Money Multiplier's return to the races. The distance a little bit shorter than what he wants. There was no pace on him. The jock just took him to the outside, got him into the race, and he ran hard. It was really a strong prep. And you're right, he ran so well in this race last year. I'm going to agree with Mike, however. I'm going to go with Sadler's Joy, and I kind of like the jockey switch to Julien Leparoux. Leparoux has ridden this horse successfully in the past, and if you go back to some of Sadler's Joy's races at Gulfstream, Leparoux made it a point to keep this horse covered up as long as possible. He didn't want to show him daylight to begin his run, possibly because Leparoux felt that if he made the lead, he'd pull some of the tricks he did in the Bowling Green and start pulling himself up. I think we're going to see Sadler's Joy covered up and come with a good, strong late run. He does have a big kick. I'll give him one more chance and forgive him off a little bit of a dud in the Bowling Green. JK's got a pick 6 play at Saratoga. Craig Milkowski's TimeformUS Spotlight is on the forego, and a curious place play with a Breeders' Cup Sprint champion. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. It's going to be the speed edition. We're going to talk about the pick 6 at Saratoga on Saturday during Travers Day. If it's going to be fast, covering all 6 races. However, if you want to get more details, more analysis, more B horses, things like that, tune in on Friday to the DRF Players podcast with myself and Peter Thomas Fornatel. Let's get right to it. The first leg is race 7, the Grade 1 Ballerina. I'm going to use the 2, Curlin's Approval, the 3, Paula Silver Lining, and the 5, Karina Mia. Curlin's Approval has been dangerous going one turn for a majority of her career. Obviously, this is the first time we're going to see her recently against this quality of horses, but I think she's going to run well in this spot. She's tactical enough. She should find herself a good place. The 3, Paula Silver Lining. Ever since she's been in Chad Brown's barn, I've been trying to beat her. I've given up on that. She's a really nice horse, and he's got her going in the right direction. I think she's going to be extremely dangerous in this spot. And the 5, Karina Mia, who's also second time, Chad Brown. Her last time was first time, and she ran really well for him there. I think that now they know a little bit more about each other, and I think we can expect big things from Karina Mia. She was always meant to be a really good one-turn filly, and I think we'll see that on Saturday. In race 8, the second leg, the Allen Jerkins, I am going to just use one horse in here. I'm going to use the 1, Practical Joke. That horse has been screaming one turn for majority of his career. They got him back one turn, a couple starts back in the Dwyer, ran huge. They went ahead and tried the Haskell, knowing that they could cut back in this spot if he couldn't get it done there. And here we are. He's cutting back. He's drawn inside. He's got tons of speed. Talkaful is borderline a runoff type of horse. They're going to absolutely run in front of him. American Anthem's drawn outside with an outside post. It's going to have to be forward. Practical Joke's going to sit in behind, make one run, and I think that he'll get there as my only single of the pick 6. And the 4 go. There's a horse I'm really interested in. I'm going to use as an A horse, and that's the 4, Divining Rod. Arnaud Delacour could obviously get a dirt sprinter going in the right direction. Just see last year with AP Indian. I think that the Divining Rod could be one of those types. He ran really good last time at Laurel, going 7/8 in the slop. I think that he could kind of build on that performance here, second off of a layoff. But that, of course, is if Mind Your Biscuits and Dre Fong don't show up. Those 2 horses are obviously the class of this race. Mind Your Biscuits could go down as one of the best New York breds of all time, at least New York bred sprinters. And then Dre Fong, of course, as long as he doesn't take a left turn at the gap, he's going to be ultra tough in here with what TimeformUS and many other pace projections have him as being dead loose on the lead, which is always dangerous going 7/8. So in that spot, I'm just going to use the 4, the 6, and the 10. In race 10, I don't really have a strong opinion here. I just know that the Europeans are better than our horses on the grass. We saw that last year with Flincher coming over here, being kind of a B type over there and being our A horse for a majority of the year. I would think that Erupt and Idaho are going to be extremely tough in here. Those are the only 2 I'm going to use. If you're a pedigree guy, Idaho is a full brother to Breeders' Cup turf winner Highland Reel. Obviously it's in his blood to run well, and Highland Reel has excelled well in American racing, and I would expect the same from Idaho. The 6 and the 7 and the Sword Dancer for me. In the Grade 1 Travers, the big race, I'm not going to use the Derby winner. I'm not going to use the Preakness winner. I will, however, use the Belmont winner, Tapwrit. I think he's going to run huge here. He's getting the typical Todd Pletcher train up to the race, which Todd has always done well. He does well with a lot of time in between races. So I think Tapwrit is one that definitely could be dangerous in this spot. I'm going to use the 3 West Coast. When Bob Baffert's in the dirt horse out east, you got to pay attention. His horses usually run well out here. And then I'm going to use kind of 2 of early in the year, they were underdogs. The 6, Gervin, and the 10, IRAP. Both of them have been running big figures, have had big performances, and I think could be a little bit sneaky in a race where, the Cloud Computing and Good Samaritan and Always Dreaming should take money, but I don't really trust any of those 3 horses. So I'm going to use Gervin and IRAP in this spot. McCracken, ultimately, I like the horse, but I think he's going to want a little bit shorter. And then on to the last leg, the Boston Spa. You got to decide which Chad Brown you're going to use. I've decided on 2. I'm going to use the 1, Lady Eli, and the 5, Antono. I know when I first started going to the racetrack, when horses break through the gate before the race, I was taught that you need to cancel the ticket or at least not expect your horse to run well. But a new thing that I learned is if a horse breaks through the gate and then goes on and runs well, you better respect that they're pretty good. And that's what happened last time with Lady Eli and Antono. I expect those 2 horses to run really well in this spot. Like I said, if you want more in-depth coverage, also some alternate selections, maybe some B horses, tune into the DRF Players podcast. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Hi, this is Craig Mulkowski, Chief Speed Figure Analyst of TimeformUS for Out of the Gate. This week, I'm going to take a look at the Grade 1 Forgo being run at Saratoga on Saturday, and just an action-packed card full of big stakes races. It's a 7-furlong sprint for older males, and I drew a really good field. We got a 127 TimeformUS race rating, which is just about on par for a Grade 1 stake. And with good reason. We got the reigning Breeders' Cup Sprint champion. We have Mind Your Biscuits, who some think is the leader to the division, and some others in here. The first thing we want to look at is the TimeformUS pace projector. This is actually the reason I chose this race today, because it is a race that just, if there's ever lone speed, this is it. We show the 10 as having a clear early lead, and that's Breeders' Cup Sprint champ Jerfong. And he's shown with a gap there, and it would be bigger other than the fact that we limited at TimeformUS to just a certain distance. His early speed rating is head and shoulders above the others, and he is almost as sure a leader as you'll ever find if he breaks well. One thing to note here on the TimeformUS pace projector, in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see there's a horse lacking pace data. So I always like to check those out and see why and if perhaps they could be a factor. In this case, it's a horse named Ross who's shipping in from overseas, where he's been competing in France and Dubai. And while he's done pretty well, a quick look at his comments on the right side show he's a horse that pretty much always lags back and makes a run late. So he's very unlikely to be a pace factor here. So I think it's safe to say Jerfong will be up front. The horse has run some nice ratings overseas. He's cracked the low 120s once, but I don't think he's going to be a factor in here. Usually American speed's a lot more than what we see over in Dubai. The horse we do want to focus on today is Jerfong. Like I said a few times already, he is a Breeders' Cup Sprint champion, a race he won rather easily last year, pressing, I believe, favored Masochistic, and just putting that one away and winning easy. And interestingly enough, a horse who was further back in third was Mind Your Biscuits, who made a late run but wasn't able to make a dent into the top two. He did eventually get elevated to second when Masochistic was DQ'd for a medication violation, but he ran third on the track that day. Jerfong came back at Del Mar a few weeks ago, and he had quite an adventurous trip. He ducked in at the gap between where the chute opens up into the main track, and dumped rider Mike Smith. He caused he obviously kept running. He caused all kind of traffic problems, but we're just going to ignore that race. Think it was a fluke. One thing to note is he draws the far outside today. So there's not going to be any problems with ducking in. And he also ran over this track last year from the far outside and easily won the King's Bishop, which has been renamed the Jerkins and will also be run on the card Saturday. He won that really easy, and I think this is just a dream setup for him. He's definitely going to be my choice today. Let's look at a few other horses in the race. The one is a morning line favorite, Mind Your Biscuits. My problems with him are, one, his big win was at Meydan in Dubai, where he won rather easily, but it was a track that was definitely favoring off the pace horses today. And when you look over the horses he has beaten this year, it's a decent bunch, but there's no killers in there, and certainly nothing the likes of a Jerfong. He was not able to get near him in the BC Sprint, and I don't really think he's going to have much of a chance today with the pace set up. Stallwalking Dude's another one, and here's a horse to show you what the pace is like here. He's just a stone closer, always comes from out of it. Yet he's shown second in the TimeformUS pace projector. I mean, somebody had to be second in a field full of closers, and he's the one listed second. My issue with him, he could run well, but he's always failed when he tries grade 1 level events. He's had several opportunities, never win. He seems to do his best in the listed 100,000 kind of stakes like he won last time. He's had a few placings in grade 2s, but he's yet to be able to crack the barrier for winning. Probably the most interesting horse to challenge Jerfong would be Divining Rod. He's a horse that ran a really good second in the grade 1 cigar mile last year at a mile. He ran second to Connect by a head. Just a real good effort, laid off for a while. And then he just returned in August at Laurel, of all places, over a muddy track. And there he was in a race. He did run huge. I mean, his final time figure was a 1:31 that day, but the pace was super slow. He was 2 to 5. He was over match rivals. So it was kind of a paid workout. We include pace in our figures, so you'll notice that 131 actually becomes a 121 due to the pace and also to him picking up weight for this race here. So once again, the forego, I'm going to go with Drafong. I think his pace advantage is just going to be too much to overcome. And if you're interested in playing some exactas, I'll probably use Stalwalk and Dune Divining Rod, looking to get a little bit of a price over favored Mind Your Biscuits. That's it this week for TimeformUS for Out of the Gate. Thanks.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Mike Beer, NYRA analyst. You got something on the Travers Day undercard.
Yeah, I know there's a million graded stakes races, but forget about those for a minute. Race number 2, turf allowance race. Number 3 is Surprise Twist. This horse I think deserves another chance. She raced at Saratoga earlier in the meet. I thought she got sort of bad position in that race. Caught behind a horse who wasn't going at the start. She got no forward position, and it left her here at the top of the stretch in a race where they just walked on the lead, and she's going to come with he's going to come with a pretty big run here through the stretch. I think this is, to keep in mind, this is a last quarter of a mile in this race in 22-2, and this horse is trying to close into it, and close into it he does. He just missed a second at the end. I think this is an underrated performance. He's very lightly raced. He has all the upside in this field, and I think he'll run better on Saturday.
Matt, you'll go to Saratoga as well. You're going to try to beat Paula's Silver Lining in the Ballerina.
Yeah, it's just one of those scenarios where I'm not enamored by Paula's Silver Lining. She's a hard hitter. She's going to show up and run her race. Karina Mia, don't love her. Obviously, you have to respect her credentials. And I kind of wanted to shop around a little bit, so I went to the outside with Highway Star. Highway Star, I think, is one of the more underrated or underappreciated horses that we have, particularly here in New York. She's a nice New York bred. Her most recent run was in the Ogden Phipps, and we're going to see two different pieces of the replay. First, the start. You just saw she just stumbled pretty badly out of there, and that's already going to put her behind the 8 ball, considering you've got Songbird and paid up subscriber in here. And you see her now. She's all out and behind horses, but she did need to wait a little bit. She's going to angle out, and she's going to finish evenly, but it's worth noting, you've had 5 next out winners come out of this race. Buyers of 92, 91, 92, 88, 71. This mare is basically unbeaten with the exception of this race, going 1 turn. Her 2-turn races, that's where she stubs her toe. I think that she's going to get a decent enough trip in here. She's 10-1 on the morning line. She's going to be every bit of that. I think she has a legitimate chance in here to beat the other fillies in the Ballerina at the Alabama.
She is a hard trier that loves that turn back in distance and should be a good price. Jersey Shore, for me, it's the Philip Island at Monmouth. Only a 5-horse field, but I think my best bet, the number 2, Just Call Kenny, will either be the 3rd or 4th choice in the wagering. Let's go back 2 starts for Just Call Kenny. This was the Salvador Mile, an extremely inside speed favoring track. Classy Class was able to make the lead when inexplicably nobody wanted to go. And you see Just Call Kenny on the outside after coming widest into the stretch. He's really digging right now, and he's going to get up for 2nd in the waning strides. After this race, he ran yet again in the Monmouth Cup, and he had the misfortune to take on Sharp as Tekka when that one ran. And we know that Sharp as Tekka is one of the favorites right now for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. A horse like Just Call Kenny can't step with Sharp as Tekka. I think he can step with these horses. The favorite in the race is going to be Eagle. I'm not sure Eagle's late running style really fits Monmouth, and he's a horse that can be had anyway. Mr. Jordan is the speed in the rail. That running style does fit Monmouth. I'm not sure 1 1/8 is really what that horse wants. I think Just Call Kenny is going to work out a really nice trip just in behind the lead, and he should be a good price in the Philip H. Island. That's all the time we have this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.